Okay, despite what the clock behind you all says, it is 7 o'clock, so I'll call this meeting to order. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Oh, that's working.
Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Just would like to remind everyone that this meeting is being broadcast live by Chelmsford Telemedia, we hope, and video recorded for later broadcast. You can't hear us? We're going to check and see if it is being. Maybe they have the. There we go.
There it is.
Okay.
I saw them in there.
Good job,
when I came
Paul.
up.
Yes, thank you.
Good use of the force.
Okay, I will say that again, that this meeting is being broadcast live by Chelmsford Telemedia and videotaped for later rebroadcast. If anybody else in the audience is audio or video recording, please let me know at this time.
Molly Lockman, Chelmsford Independent.
Thank you. Okay, we have a couple public service announcements this evening. First of all, Selectman Hanson's going to tell us about Halloween.
Well, thank you. Halloween hours will be Friday the 31st from 6 to 8 p.m. Thank you.
That was quick.
Plus-
That's all you have to say about it?
Okay, I will be a minion for Halloween this year.
Minion. I don't know what a minion is.
I'll be taking out my nieces and nephews. I'm not going alone, so it's okay. I'll take a photo.
Okay. Next up is Regina Jackson to tell us about Veterans Day services.
Hi, good evening. Veterans Day this year is on a Tuesday, so it's always November 11th, and in Chelmsford, we celebrate or honor at November 11th, 11/11 at 11 a.m. at Veterans Memorial Park, which is right beside McCarthy Middle School. Everybody is welcome. There's no school that day, so we'd love to have all the children that we can have, and the weather's always terrific, so everybody please come out. So again, it's 11/11 at 11 a.m. at Veterans Park, and it's a Tuesday this year.
So, Regina, would you like to tell us who the honored speaker is going to be?
Well,
Or
at
is
least
that a
one of them is,
surprise?
well, I can tell you one will be Richard P. O'Neill, who is the person that our new Veterans Housing is named in honor of. And that'll be wonderful.
Okay.
So we'll see everybody at November 11th at 11.
And we do have a proclamation for you that Janet will read
Okay.
and then give to you.
Town of Chelmsford Proclamation for Veterans Day, Tuesday, November 11th, 2014. Whereas November 11th was the day on which the armistice ending World War I was signed, and whereas this day has been set aside to commemorate the men and women of the United States who have honorably served our nation in the armed forces, and whereas on Veterans Day 2014, we offer our support to those veterans who suffer illnesses and disabilities resulting from their service. And whereas there are approximately 4,000 veterans living in the town of Chelmsford, now therefore we, the Chelmsford Board of Selectmen, do hereby recognize Tuesday, November 11th, 2014 as Veterans Day, and on this day urge the residents of Chelmsford to remember the personal contributions of all veterans in their community and nation, and to demonstrate their respect and gratitude in appropriate ways. Signed this 11th day of November 2014, Pat Wojcicki, Chairman, Janet Askenberg, Bob Joyce, George Dixon, Matt Hansen, and Honorina Maloney, Town Clerk.
I will see you then.
Abden?
Okay, we're at the open session portion of the meeting. Anybody who would like to speak to the board about any subject is welcome to come to the microphone and address us at this time.
This is the opportunity to do, about whenever it shows up on the agenda, this is the opportunity to speak.
Yes,
correct?
or even if it's not on the agenda, you can speak about it, yes.
Okay. My name is Barbara Ward. I live at 255 North Road, Unit 8. I am here because of a extreme concern over the presentation of a letter to you people concerning the concentration of group homes in Old Stage and the farms. And I will admit right up front that I have a particular vested interest in this question. I have a 42-year-old 42. Your old daughter who lives in a group home, although it is not in Chelmsford. She does live in a group home. I would like to say, first of all, that the presenters of this concern have valid issues about their neighborhood. And I would refer you to the second page. I think it's the fourth paragraph down that starts, "Here's why we seek proactive protection against overclustering of group homes." And I think that their concerns about vans used to transport patrons from group facilities in the morning and the evening, they speed and they endanger the neighbors. Facility employees park on the street. They allude to something about minimum parking requirements per Chelmsford Zoning Code 195-17. I don't think that applies to residences, but I'm not entirely sure. It doesn't apply in residentially zoned areas. And I'll deal with the employees and patrons at these facilities who comport themselves in ways that create a substandard quality of life relative to reasonable expectations. And they give some examples that they deal with. And I will, I'll go with, let's start with D, which is loud backup alarms from transport vans go off with regularity. All vans and the UPS truck, the FedEx truck, the mailman, the guy who delivers the water, they all are required by law to have these backups. And we all deal with that in every neighborhood. And if you have a neighbor who frequently gets deliveries, you will hear them frequently. They also talk about employees honk car and van horns repeatedly during sleeping hours and at other times on a daily basis. As I went through all of these concerns, not just those there, but throughout the letter, I really have a lot of respect for the issues they're bringing forward. But these are neighbor-to-neighbor issues. These aren't group home issues. This has to do, if you have trouble with anyone speeding in your neighborhood, you call the police. A van is easy to report. It says whose van it is, and it's marked. You can call the van company. You can call the group home, in addition to calling the police. I'm really concerned about some of the allusions that they make to the people who are in these group homes. Particularly with, and I'm rather impressed with the sophistry of some of the language they've chosen to use, and also with their reference to authority, citing various court cases and state and local laws. However, they're asking you to develop a balanced oversight of instantiation. Okay, I think you should do that. And they refer to the residents of these homes as those with legal delinquency or mental ailment. By what definition? Legal delinquency? Are we running halfway houses? Are there any halfway houses in Chelmsford for recently released criminals where they live in a group? Mental ailment? What do they mean by mental ailment? I would really be interested in that. Are they talking about people who are intellectually impaired or have neurological ailments or just can't take care of themselves because of physical disabilities? Another thing they suggest is that because the business models of these group homes, that they would be more properly, they use the word appropriate, for some form of commercially zoned property. Town of Chelmsford doesn't require kennels to be in commercially zoned properties. I understand the gist of this letter. However, these are not facilities. These are not institutions. These are homes. These are homes for the same children, like my daughter, who was one of those cute little kids that you loved when she was at Camp Paul. They used to use her in PR. She's precious. She's now 42. She's an adult. Adults with intellectual impairments frighten the general public. They don't always behave well. I've had lots of neighbors who don't behave well. And there are the normal methods of dealing with neighborhood problems that they should have recourse to first. And I will tell you one more thing, that they refer to them as those prone to violence may be in close proximity to children, elderly, and all residents. They refer to a specific incident where a man from a group home went into a neighbor's home and upset everyone there. And how they, however, come to the conclusion in this letter that this pregnant woman, it gets very poignant, a pregnant woman was attacked on Mother's Day by someone from a group home. The attacker was returned to the home against the wishes of the victim, and the family was compelled to move. I don't get that. I want to know that we are doing the best by all of our neighbors and all of our neighborhoods. But to distinguish, as law, by the way, really doesn't allow you to do, for group homes, is truly sad and very, very demeaning to our community. I hope that you consider very carefully any decision or discussion you may have. I know perfectly well the problems of having a special needs adult in your home, but these are just that, they're homes. Thank you.
Thank you, Barbara. And as you know, we will be discussing this later in the agenda. So we'll have more on that then.
In case anyone's not watching, I just want to make it very clear. I agree with those points. I think they're fantastic points. And just to everyone watching, just because someone sends us a letter sometimes, and we receive a lot of letters that say a lot of different things, it, in no way means that the Board of Selectmen endorses those positions or the terminology used or anything like that. We accept input and feedback frequently, but I think you brought up a lot of great points that the people in the group homes, they are homes and they are our neighbors, and they're people's children's and they're people's adults, and they're a part of our community. So I just want you to know that we, at least me personally, I think the rest of the board as well agree with those points. So
And we
you.
will be discussing it later, Matt. So, anybody else for open session?
Hi,
Hello.
Karen Camo. I spoke to you 3 weeks ago. I'm concerned with the Dutton Street house, the Dutton House move. I live at 2 Packard Lane, which abuts the property of one of the bidders. I understand that you've put out a new bid proposal, which I find the criteria very good. I think you did a good job there. One of the things I won't reiterate all the things I said 3 weeks ago, but another thing I would like to ask you to consider is the valuation of the homes that do abut the property are going to suffer. And that's very concerning for this neighborhood, for me and a few others that are abutting this property. I have probably 200 feet of backyard that totally are in open view now of that property, and it would really, really reduce the value of my home if some house was to be squeezed in there. So I do ask you to consider that as well. But all the other criteria, I do appreciate the work you did and what you put out there, because I think that most of it is right on. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else for open session? No? Okay. All right, we'll go to committee vacancies.
There's currently one opening on the Civic Committee. There are 2 openings on the Community Preservation Fund Committee, 2 openings on the Cultural Council, 1 opening on the East Chelmsford Harmony Park Design and Renovation Committee, 1 opening on the Energy Conservation Committee, 1 opening on Great Brook Farm Advisory Committee, 1 opening on the Historical Commission, 1 opening on the Land Management Subcommittee, and 1 opening on the Personnel Board. If you're interested in serving on a town board or committee, please fill out the committee application. It's available on the town website, www.townofchelmsford.us.
Thank you. Okay, we have a public hearing this evening for transfer of owner for Moe's Southwest Grill. Is there anybody here representing Moe's?
How do you do? My name's Steve Hickson, and I am currently the owner of the Moe's in Chelmsford as well as the Moe's in Waltham, and we're requesting a transfer of the beer and wine license accordingly.
Okay, this is a transfer of ownership for that.
Well, the ownership is transferred. This is actually a transfer of the beer and wine license that was held by the previous owner over to the new owners.
Okay. All right. This is a public hearing. Is there anybody here that would like to speak in favor or against this application for a change of owner for the beer and wine license? Okay. Don't see anybody here. Does anybody on the board have any questions for the applicant? Go ahead.
Will it still be known as Moe's, or will it be Burritos LLC?
The Burritos LLC is the owner of the legal entity, but Moe's Southwest Grill is what it is and what it will continue to be.
Is it a franchise?
Yes, it is. There's over 500 in the U.S. right now.
Okay, thank you.
And Mr. Hickson, you were the owner before and you're transferring it, is that
No,
correct?
I am the new owner.
You're the- okay.
Derek Delory, who is my general manager, who has been the general manager since it opened 6 years ago, is still on with us. He and his stepdad were the previous owners, so his stepdad was ready to retire and move on. And so he contacted me and asked if I would be interested in taking over, so we came to an agreement and took care of all the paperwork, and now we're just looking for the legal transfer of the beer and wine license
Okay.
to do everything by the book.
And I'm assuming that you also want the entertainment license to be transferred
Yes.
at the same
yeah,
time?
everything that went along with it.
I think that, yeah, just want to include that with it. And they have the restaurant license to say and entertainment. Okay, any other questions for the applicant?
Motion to close the hearing?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Again, this typically is, according to our policy, would be a 2-week wait. I guess I'm okay with waiving that since it's everything's gonna be the same when we already have people who've already been there, so.
Motion to waive the 2-week wait.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion.
I make a motion to approve a petition for transfer of ownership, wine and malt beverage only restaurant license and entertainment license from Salsain Inc., doing business as Drumhill Moe's Southwest Grill, to Chelmsford Burritos LLC, doing business as Moe's Southwest Grill, to be exercised on the premises at 90 Drumhill Road.
Seconded?
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Good luck.
Good luck.
Okay, we have several licenses this evening. First is a change of hours for Harrington Wine and Liquors. Do we have anybody here from the applicant?
John Harrington, Harrington Wine and Liquors. With the new law taking place as of last weekend, they're allowing us to change our hours to 10 o'clock in the morning. So not that I'm going to do that, but at least I want to have the option to do it if in the future I decide to open up at 10.
Okay.
Okay.
Any questions for the applicant?
Don't really have a choice, do we?
All right, we have a motion?
I make a motion to approve a change of hours to the package store all alcohol license for Harrington Wine and Liquors, Inc. from 12 noon opening to 10 o'clock a.m. opening on Sundays, to be exercised on the premises at 10 Summer Street.
Seconded?
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, next we have a roadside vendor license for the North Pole Christmas trees. Do we have the applicant here?
George Kessler, along Kessler. Good evening.
Okay. And I know that you have been selling trees up there for quite a few years now, right?
Yes.
You're going to be moving a little bit, right? The location
yes,
where you'll be?
Yeah, there's been a change. Sears there's a new business there now, and so we've been pushed to next door.
Okay. Do we have any questions for the applicant?
You have permission from the new owners of the new plaza next door?
Yeah. It's not a new plaza, but
I mean, yeah, your new location.
our new location. Yes.
Permission.
I can, just a question, I think in the future,
Sure.
we should have a letter from the people who are allowing it.
Well,
But-
typically they would sign it. There's a place for it to be signed right here. I noticed that the owner has not signed your application here unless, yeah, it looks like,
Oh, I
it
think
says
it looks like
signature
he
of
signed
authorized
next to this,
representative of property.
they signed it.
They
Oh,
did
just-
sign it?
Maybe it's just not on the line. Did they sign next to your name? Is that what
Yeah,
it is there?
yeah.
I thought that
All
was
right.
those two guys.
Sorry
Okay.
about that.
Okay,
Okay.
no problem.
Okay,
Okay.
all right. Sounds good. All right.
I make a motion to
Can
approve.
I ask
Oh,
one
sorry.
quick, I'm sorry. Does any of that, any of your money, because most of the time, most of the people, the vendors that sell Christmas trees and stuff in town, usually give some of the money to the local charities. I just wondered, does any of the money, any of your income come to any of the local charities? I was,
No, sir. It's
okay. Thank you.
Okay.
I make a motion to approve a roadside vendor license to North Pole Xmas trees at 77 Drum Hill Road from November 17th, 2014 to December 26th, 2014 for the hours of 9 o'clock a.m. to 9 o'clock p.m.
Seconded.
All in favor?
Aye.
Good luck.
Thank you very much, everyone.
You're
Thank
welcome.
you.
Good night.
Okay, next up, a one-day beer and wine license for the Chelmsford Community Center. Laura Lee will tell us about this.
Hi, I'm Laura Lee from the Chelmsford Community Center, and we're here for a one-day beer and wine license for our upcoming free Halloween movie night. Following trick-or-treating from 6 to 8, we're inviting folks over to the town hall for, they can wear their costumes for little Halloween festivities afterwards, since it's a Friday night this year. And we'll be showing the classic movie, E.T. the Extraterrestrial. And doors will open at 7:30, and the movie will start around 8:30. We figure people probably won't be coming until around 8, but they'll be open a little bit earlier.
Any questions for Laura?
Are the kids going to be able to sit through the movie after eating all their Halloween candy?
We're going to test this. We haven't done this before. I'm a little concerned with the candy.
I'll be curious.
But, you know, it's a nice space. They can run around if they need to.
That's true.
Bring your nephew or niece up there.
We'll
I
also
think I
have
will.
pizza and popcorn. We're hoping the
All right.
carbs will bring them down a little bit.
I'll behave.
What time
Will you come in your costume?
What time are you gonna start the movie,
The
actually?
movie will start at 8:30.
Okay.
So that gives folks about a half hour to come over afterwards, after trick-or-treating.
That's all for me.
How was your parade?
The parade was excellent. We had a wonderful parade and party this weekend, and the weather was perfect.
Nice.
Okay.
You have to come next year.
I'm coming.
I get invited, I will.
You should, it's fun.
I make a motion to approve a one-day beer and wine license for Northtown Hall Advisory Committee and North Chelmsford Village Association on October 31st, 2014, for the hours of 7 o'clock p.m. to 11 o'clock p.m. to be exercised on the premises at 31 Princeton Street.
Seconded.
All in favor?
Aye.
Good luck.
Thank you. Hope you can join us.
Okay, next up is a one-day beer and wine license for the Chelmsford Center for the Arts. I told you on this one. This is Susan Gates.
Susan.
Good evening. Thank you very much for having me here. We are asking for a license for 5:30 to 7:30, and it's a gallery opening in essence. It's our birthday also, so we can celebrate the third year of the Chelmsford Center for the Arts. And we have Kit Harbison is one of our board members. She is tip certified. We may also decide to go ahead and hire a bartender, but it would be Joe Varnum, who we use on a regular basis.
Does it feel like 3 years?
Now it feels about like 23.
Yeah. Unbelievable. Wow. No questions.
Okay, anybody else have questions for the
Is that the
applicant?
one that was added tonight?
Yes.
Oh, okay, yeah.
I make a motion to approve a one-day beer and wine license for Chelmsford Center for the Arts on November 7th, 2014, for the hours of 5 o'clock PM to 7:30 PM, to be exercised on the premises at 1A North Road.
Seconded.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much, and you're all welcome to come by the gallery. Our gallery is open on the first Friday of the month at these hours, and also on Thursdays from 5 to 7 and 5:30 to 7, and on Sundays from 2 to 4. We have a great show. It's called Unbound, and if you like superheroes, it's the perfect show to see. So come on down. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Okay, we have another one-day beer and wine license for Chelmsford Center for the Arts. Donna Faubert.
Yes. Hi. We're having a birthday party on the 22nd of November for my one-year-old granddaughter, and that's why I'm here. Would like to have a one-day liquor license, and I do have Joe Varnum, the tip-certified bartender that Susan has used many times, contracted to come.
Okay. Any questions for the applicant?
I make a motion to approve a one-day beer and wine license for Donna Faubert on November 22nd, 2014, for the hours of 1 o'clock PM to 5 o'clock PM, to be exercised on the premises at 1A North Road.
Seconded.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, next up, we have one-day increase in capacity and extension of hours at 1 Central Square.
How you doing? Charlie Mickle, Center Brickhouse Pizza Inc. Applying for extension of hours on the night before Thanksgiving and increasing capacity. And I believe you have all the notes here with the tent that we've had the last few years in the back as well.
Okay, now, as you're aware, last year, it's done, we have to do it, kind of different, I guess you could say. And I think last year you also did this where the actual one-day license was held separate from.
Yes, it's separate. We have to purchase, and
Correct.
beer and wine only. We have to purchase that separately
Correct.
from our vendors.
Correct, so that's
Anything doesn't get
also
sold,
the-
it gets sent back.
Right.
Yeah. And
So-
I know last year it came up, how would we send it back? And the vendors took it all back, so
Okay,
that worked out pretty well.
all right, and, so the extension for hours will be just at the inside, and then the one day will include, if we're gonna do that, for the outside, for
Yes.
the tent. And you are aware of all the restrictions and everything that were in place?
I believe we got the same copies you got
Okay.
from the police and fire.
Okay.
At the motions. Okay,
Um,
review that.
Let me look at it.
Two
Um,
firefighters.
Now, so the motion for the one-day license, you're the manager of record at Brickhouse, correct?
One
Okay.
of them.
Pardon me?
One of them, yes.
Okay, because my understanding is that you can't have a one-day if you already have a license. So that's why, like last year, I think it was in Mike Brown's name, because he's not the manager of record at Brickhouse.
He's the president.
He's, okay, so how did we do it? How did we do it last year? Do you remember? Was that?
I think you did it like this. I mean, this looks very familiar, this motion.
Okay,
There you go.
okay.
So-
Go
You're
ahead.
saying it shouldn't say, the one-day license shouldn't say Center Brickhouse Pizza on it?
Correct.
That's what you're saying?
That's what I'm saying,
That
because
may
Center
be-
Brickhouse Pizza already has a license, and by law, we cannot give a one-day license to an establishment that already has a
Right,
full,
right.
a license. So I think it needs to be in a different name. even if that name is just one central square or something, you know.
Mike Brown,
something like
maybe?
that. Or Mike Brown, or, did you have a question, Bob?
Yeah, how many police and how many fire?
There's 2 fire and 2 police.
How long, what are the hours for them?
Do you have the
Fire,
motion?
I think it's right on their conditions sheet,
Very last page, 9:30 to
Here.
1:30.
9:30 to 1:30.
Look at that, it's got all the details.
Oh,
Probably have
okay,
it in there.
okay.
Paul, do you have
Yeah.
any recommendations on who the license should go to, or?
And it would be fine in Mike Brown's name.
Okay.
Okay.
I think we should just do, I think we should do that.
You want him to come up and speak? You want Mike Brown to come out? He's in the back.
Yeah, well,
He's hiding back there.
yeah, I saw him back there too. I mean, yeah,
He's probably sleeping, but it's all right.
no, he's wide awake back there. He's listening carefully. So any suggestions on that? I thought that was how we did it last year, that it was in Mike Brown's name. Do you remember, Paul?
I thought this was the motion we used last year.
I thought it
Okay.
was too.
I mean, if it worked, we can do this one again, but, okay.
Do you want me to just keep it Centerbrook House Pizza then?
Yeah, okay.
Is it on there as that, or is Brick House Center Sports Grill?
It's on a
Would that be
Centerbrook
easier to
house.
do it that way?
Well, yeah, but the license that you currently have is under what name?
Center Brick House Pizza, Inc.
Okay. If this is what we used and it worked, we can go with this. Before we go with that, does anybody have any other questions for Charlie or Mike Brown about how this event will be conducted?
I mean, if you want to be sure, Paul could probably just bring up the agenda. Look on the website and bring up the agenda from last year, right? Not sure if it'll be on there, but
I'm just curious, it's a beer and wine license, and so how do you handle hard liquor?
It's not served in the tent area.
But
Just-
they can get it in the restaurant?
They can get it in the
But
restaurant, they
it's a-
cannot bring it
It's a
out.
separate, if it's a separate location, so really they can't go outside with it.
Right.
They cannot go one to
Right,
the
That's
other.
why I brought it up.
Okay. Well, it was that way last year too.
Okay.
I mean, we can go with it. I mean, if we have
Okay.
to adjust it, we do have another meeting before
okay.
Thanksgiving.
That'll be fine.
Yeah.
Now, this is a public hearing, right?
This is not a public
Oh.
hearing.
Oh, okay.
This is only a license.
Okay. I make a motion to approve a one-day license to Center Brick House Pizza, Inc. from November 24th, 2014 to November 28th, 2014, an increase in hours from 1 o'clock a.m. closing to a 2 o'clock a.m. closing to be exercised on the premises at 1 Central Square with the following conditions. Number 1, 2 firefighters will be hired to monitor the occupancy and conduct life safety inspections of both the building and tent from 9:30 p.m. to 1:30 a.m. Number 2, the occupancy limit must adhere to 156 patrons allowed in the tent, 94 patrons in the building. Number 3, a list of the security personnel hired by Center Brick House Pizza must be submitted to the Fire Prevention Office in order to review the occupancy compliance procedures. Number 4, a crowd control manager will be required during the hours of operation. Number 5, signs stipulating no smoking within 30 feet of an entranceway shall be positioned at the tent's entry and the propane location. Number 6, a permit must be obtained for the installation of the tent that complies with the Massachusetts State Building Code 780, CMR 8th edition, and the Massachusetts Fire Prevention Regulations. Number 7, the applicant will provide the heating for the tent and will be responsible for applying for the proper permits. Number 8, the tent must be erected and ready for inspection by Tuesday, November 25th at noon. This will allow sufficient time to correct any deficiencies and allow for reinspection. Number 9, must have 2 police officer details present from 8 o'clock p.m. to 2 o'clock a.m. That's all.
Seconded?
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, next we have a special license to sell wine at an agricultural event. Is anybody here from Aronap Cellars? I guess that's how you say that.
Yes.
Okay, and you are?
I'm Noel Powell. I'm the owner and winemaker at Aronap Cellars. We're Massachusetts' newest farm winery located in Westford. And we've been accepted to be a vendor at the Chelmsford Agway Farm Market for the winter season, starting Saturday, November 1st, running through, I believe it's February 28th. And we're looking to get your approval to be able to sell our wine at the farm market.
Good. Any questions for the applicant?
What kind of wine?
Right now, I have 6 wines available. I have 2 whites, a Chardonnay and a Viognier blend that we make from a blend of Massachusetts-grown grapes. The Viognier comes from Washington, so it's a bi-coastal wine. I've got 3 red wines available, Merlot Cab Franc blend that is grown in Rhode Island, a Carmenere Syrah blend, and a Petite Syrah Cabernet Sauvignon blend, and then a very special, very unique dessert wine made from Berkshire's maple syrup.
Hmm.
Good.
Very interesting.
Any other questions?
No.
Okay.
I make a motion to approve a special license to sell wine at an agricultural event to Aronap Cellars, LLC, at Agway's Farmers Market on Saturdays from November 1st, 2014 to February 28th, 2015, for the hours of 10 o'clock a.m. to 2 o'clock p.m.
Seconded.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, good luck.
Thank you.
Okay, our first report for the evening is from Evan Belansky, who's going to tell us about the Katrina Road Brownfields project.
Good evening. What I'm passing around, I'll get to in a couple of minutes. I just wanted to provide some newer board members as well as the public some background. So 27 Katrina Road is a 3.11 acre industrially zoned site. It was occupied by a 35,000 square foot building. It's at the interchange of Route 3 and 495, and it's served by all utilities. The site was originally developed in 1965. It was occupied by a semiconductor business. In 1987, chlorinated volatile organic compounds were detected in the soil and groundwater. In 2001, the building became vacant. In 2003, DEP entered into a settlement agreement with the former property owner. 2006, that business went bankrupt. And middle of July of 2006, the town took the property for non-payment of taxes. And in January of 2007, DEP encouraged the town to achieve a permanent solution via the Brownfields statute. So since the town has taken possession, the town has been operating under Chapter 21E, which is the Brownfields Act. Essentially, the town is operating with no liability as long as the town does not use this property for a revenue-generating productive use. And just to refresh the community's memory, since taking the property, the town originally abated $182,000 in taxes, $27,000 in sewer betterments. The town paid $18,000 of unpaid utility bills, and also expended $15,000 to mothball the building, cut the utilities, drain the pipes, as well as $10,000 for LSP services. The goal all along has been to redevelop the site, maximize the economic benefits of redevelopment, and minimize the use of town funds. So what I've handed out tonight is a chronological history of the site. Many of these items you should be familiar with. It's been several years since I've been here updating you on this. I want to draw your attention to spring of 2012. That's essentially probably the last time I was in front of the board on this property. So at that time, Mass Development provided the town with $413,000 to fund a pilot remediation program. It was basically a benchmark study to further delineate and define the contaminants and what type of remediation would be viable for that site. In June of 2013, Mass Brownfields Redevelopment Funds ran out of money. If you look back up on the March 18th, 2009, that is when the town was successful in having essentially earmarked $2 million of that brownfield fund to be dedicated to this property if and when the town found a third-party developer. So in June of 2013, that money no longer existed. The town had already spent about $666,000 of that money with Mass Development's approval. Fortunately, in May of 14, the Brownfield Fund was recapitalized. A month later, the town, and as this board is aware, the town issued 2 RFPs. First one was for sell the land for industrial purposes. The second one was to enter into a lease for a solar farm. After holding pre-bid meetings and the deadline, no responses were received from those 2 RFPs. Just last month, we've continued to meet on a regular basis, and last month, officials from Mass Development encouraged the town to submit the $1.3 million application to the Brownfield Remediation Loan Program Fund. That's essentially the balance from the original 2009 grant. Mass Development is scheduled, the board is scheduled to vote on the town's application at their November 20th meeting. Essentially between now and Friday, October 31st, the town will be working further with Mass Development and the town's LSP consultant to put that application together so that we are on the Mass Development board's agenda for the 20th. So finally, the action plan for moving forward, as I just said, November 20th, we would be in front of the Mass Development Board applying for the $1.3 million. That 1.3 would cover the soft and hard costs for the remediation, essentially the cleanup. That would be bring the site into compliance with the Brownfields remediation program. It would cover all costs associated with LSB services, oversight, and final reporting. If that grant is awarded, it would be awarded contingent upon successful RFP process in which a third-party developer was on board. So it would mirror the 2009 $2 million grant request. And again, the town's intent would be to issue an RFP for both industrial sale of the land as well as a solar farm for an extended period of time via a lease. The grant would go to the town. So in this particular case, because we've exhausted all reasonable and viable options at this point, the last and remaining option that's on the table is that the $2 million, the $1.3 million would be a grant to the town. In the 09, the original, the cleanup money would have gone to a third-party developer. So that is Mass Development's agreement in principle at this point. If we were awarded, the town would be responsible. We'd manage the cleanup. We would issue RFPs, obviously, for the contractor and LSB services. Once the cleanup was done, the entity that receives the town award for either the sale for industrial purposes or the long-term lease for solar farm would then move on to the site and either take possession or would occupy it via the lease. So that's a very quick, high-level update. I'd be happy to try to answer any questions that you may have.
Do we have any potential developers currently? Has anybody shown any interest?
Unfortunately, no. What we're going to be doing the second time around is we're going to be working more closely with our state partners, Mass Development, to identify development firms that have redeveloped brownfield sites from their database.
If you get to the end and nobody bids on it, with the RFP, then what do you do?
I'm not quite sure at that point. At that point, we would certainly seek additional funding rounds. But this has been an 8-year process, and other than the amount of time, all of the funding opportunities have broken in the town's favor, this being the final step. The key will be to, come January when we issue those RFPs, to actually have those RFPs be successful. I don't think we've really discussed a plan B at this point.
I mean, I think we're confident from the last round that there's interest in solar. And so that's sort of the plan B. The first priority would be to sell the property, put it back on the tax rolls, put it into some industrial use, create jobs. The fallback plan would be to use it for a solar generating facility. Probably we'd probably come back at town meeting in the spring, and we discussed this with Mass Development and DEP, to use it as a community solar site. Meaning that the users of the solar energy would probably be residing in Chelmsford, and they would basically contract to take the solar energy off the site, because there are a number of properties in town that cannot put solar at their location. So that's sort of the fallback plan. And that takes it out of the town's ownership, and because what's going to happen is the $1.3 million is going to remediate the site. Right. However, there will be monitoring of that site that will go on for years, at least 10, it could be up to 20 years. So the new owner would be responsible for those monitoring costs. And in the event that it's done for solar, then the solar company that has the lease would be responsible for the reporting and monitoring of that location, because it is a brownfield site.
And we'd have to give them a long lease.
Right, and that's why we have an article on the draft warrant for the special town meeting, that in the event the procurement RFP is successful, then we would execute for a period of up to 20 years for the lease for solar, and obviously convey the property in the event it's a sale. In the event neither of those two happens, we don't want to take it out of the tax title custodian status that it's in right now.
Okay, so could the town put a solar facility on that piece of property?
Yes, but the problem is if the town uses it for a beneficial use, which is what Evan described earlier, then we become a responsible party for the remediation. And the problem that the town has very deep pockets, because of, and therefore we would assume liability for the remediation of that site.
Beyond
and the maintenance going forward. And
beyond
that's
the 1.3.
That's why we've never used it. I mean, the first efforts in the early years were to get the building off the site. There was a hazard, and we were able to get the building off the site. But that's why we've never used it, even for parking for the rail trail, because that would deem to be a beneficial use for the community.
Okay.
So no, we don't want to acquire it. In fact, I think if we had to do over, neither Evan nor I were here in the summer of 2006. But I think if we had to do it over again, the town probably wouldn't have taken it, even for tax possession.
Because of the liability.
Because of the liability, because it, as you can see, this has taken 8 years of town resources, 8 years of activities. It was, but what's done is done. But I don't think the town would want to get in the position of becoming a responsible party.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for Evan? Thank you.
Great, thank you.
Okay, next we have Gary Persichetti, who's going to tell us about the railroad pump station reconstruction. I guess it's not going to be Gary.
Switcheroo on you. Good evening, Steve Yonley, Town Engineer. Just give a brief construction update on the Mill Road Pump Station. upgrades. The second wet well has been installed at this point. Over the course of the next week or so, there will be a cutout into Mill Road for the bypass, so then the plumbing can be interconnected between the two wet wells, so bypass is to ensure that there's no interruption in flow. All the electrical upgrades have been ordered. Should be here in the next month or so. The thought is that they'll be installed once winter weather comes, and that after testing and sign-offs by the design engineer, probably by the end of January, beginning of February, the station will be fully operational.
This is the pump station that's down near the center school,
South Road, Little
South
Peach,
Road
yep.
School.
Correct.
Right, that's the one, right
Yep.
there.
Now, we have an item for this on a,
That's on the item for the draft special town meeting warrant as well, to appropriate be $325,000 from the,
Is it 325, 350?
I believe it's 325, right?
You got 350 in the email.
350, I'm sorry, 350.
Okay.
350 from the sewer enterprise fund free cash, which, as the name suggests, it's the free cash for the enterprise fund, so it can only be used for sewer purposes.
How much free cash is there?
$1,391,000. And this will play into the fact that we try to leave about $1 million in there for emergencies.
okay. Any other questions for Gary or Steve?
Just, I see in the email, just so we say it out loud, in the email it says, this does not have anything to do with the Mill Road 40B project.
Mm-hmm.
If you could just address that and confirm that.
Sure, yes. It does not. As we said before, if the 40B did go in, that would come out of the Progress Ave pump station. Does not come out of Mill Road.
Okay, thank you. I love your glasses, by the way. I was
thank
just
you.
fascinated with what you just did. I hardly heard
The only way I
what
can
you
see.
said.
But I'm on and off. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Paul, ready for your reports?
Yeah, thank you. I've got half dozen or so items in my report this evening, and obviously it's been 3 weeks since this board has had a regular meeting, so that sort of explains the number of items, because we had the Columbus Day holiday and first session of the fall annual town meeting. The first one does pertain to the second session of town meeting and also to the special town meeting. And what I'm seeking is basically is to provide the community, meaning Board of Selectmen, Finance Committee, School Committee, and town meeting reps, and the community as a whole, with a list of available funding sources as we go into the what we call the significant financial articles. And one of those sources of available funds is overlay surplus. And this sort of followed upon a referral at the last meeting from Janet in terms of what is available in the overlay surplus. And so what I provided you in your packets and is on display this evening, the means to establish overlay surplus during the course of a fiscal year is spelled out under Chapter 59, Section 25, and it basically, any balance in the overlay account, which again, the overlay account is the amount of funding that is appropriated in the tax levy under Proposition 2.5, so it's included in your levy limit. Any balance in that account, which means in excess of the amount of the warrant remain to be collected or abated, it has to be certified by the Board of Assessors, and it can be transferred either by the assessor's own initiative or within 10 days of a written request by the Chief Executive Officer, Board of Selectmen, with written notice to the Chief Executive Officer, and that money gets put into a reserve fund to be appropriated for any lawful purpose. So the key is during the course of a fiscal year, the Board of Selectmen can make a request to the Board of Assessors to request a determination of overlay surplus. They have 10 days to respond to that request, which meets our town meeting time window, and then that available fund is an available fund for appropriation at town meeting. If there's any balance in that fund at the end of the year, then it goes down to the general fund, which would then become part of next year's free cash, if there's any surplus remaining. So in essence, as we sort of line up what is available for appropriation, as you can imagine, we're listing what we have in our stabilization fund, what we have in free cash, and so forth down the list, and this is an available fund, and again, this is really to put everything on the table in terms of what is available for the town to consider its funding options. Obviously, it's up to the boards to make their recommendations, and it's up to town meeting to ultimately make the decision, in terms of funding sources. But what we wanted to have, or what I'm seeking to do here, is to have everything available to the town in what is obviously an extraordinary situation. I don't recall in the 8 years that I've been here that we've ever asked for a determination during a fiscal year of free cash, of overlay surplus. And it's much like, and so therefore, but I do think it's appropriate and warranted, because I think people are concerned about, funding sources and possibilities and the different types of funding sources. So what needs to take place, if the board wishes to choose so, would be to have a vote to send such a written notice to the assessors, and then they would have 10 days to respond to that request.
Okay, so some of that's what's being used for the reassessment of all the properties.
That's already been done.
Correct, right, I understand.
That's gone. So what you have now is you ask them to go and look again and say, what is it that's available in terms of what hasn't been remaining in outstanding taxes or committed to tax title. And we believe, meaning the data that I've seen, and I know Janet has seen it, we believe that's a significant amount of funds, and therefore, should be put on the table for the November 17th town meetings.
Okay.
What is significant? Is it? Give us a ballpark? Or?
Janet can read it, yeah.
Yeah. There is excess overlay that's been accumulating, it looks like since at least 2007, of $940,990.87.
That would have to, what's the date of that? That one's June 30th?
This was as of August 30th,
Okay,
2014.
Okay.
And what I'd, just I guess as an addition to this, is Matt and I are going to be meeting on Thursday for the financial policy. And I'd like to put a policy in place so that we more closely track this, stay on top of this. And because I did see in some of my research that the town of Wayland, Massachusetts, when they went through a review with the DOR, and one of their recommendations was that the town establish a policy to annually conduct an analysis to determine whether excess overlay can be certified as surplus by the Board of Assessors and transferred to free cash. Because 2013, we had excess overlay of $528,000. That's money that could have gone into free cash if we had requested it by the Board of Assessors, or if they had come forward and brought this to our attention. So it's money that's just sitting there that's accumulated to close to $1 million. So rather than us falling into that again, I'd like to go ahead and have a process in place that we look at this every year and request the Board of Assessors to provide that certified amount. I mean, at this point, we can use every penny we can get. And, if we're going to look at the schools and talk about, all their revolving accounts and all the excess money on hand, if we've got $1 million practically sitting in the assessor's account, we need to pay attention to that as well.
Now, do they have any purpose that they use this for typically, that they need something in that overlay account? I mean, I think
it's the state, it's defined by state law. The difference between your overlay and your overlay surplus is it's the amount that's remaining in terms of taxes to be collected and your tax title accounts. So basically what it is if they have abatements pending before the appellate tax board, you have to hold that money in reserve until those cases are adjudicated. Now, the assessors have been very aggressive in terms of resolving cases and acting upon those. However, there's one, and that's why I say I wouldn't quote a definitive amount, because there are even cases that are still remaining. For example, the legislature never resolved the issue of the utility surcharges in terms of the abatement case that was made against the state, which, going back now, I think this is 7 or 8 years, has never been resolved. And so one of the things I know, in speaking to Frank Green, is that they're looking into that, saying to determine from the state whether they need to hold funding for that, because that when they changed the law on the taxes that utilities should charge, should be charged by communities in terms of the poles and wires, they never addressed the issue of what was still outstanding at the time the law became effective. And that case has not been resolved. So those are the type of issues that the assessors have to make a determination of.
Now, there is total outstanding taxes, which they're holding in reserve of $768,000. So hopefully that is part of that, and that's going all the way back to 2009. So I guess there's some unresolved issues there.
Right.
And then the overlay balance is 1.7 million. So if you take out what they're holding in reserve, that's where you get the $940,000.
I think it's a good idea to look at it every year. So yeah, we can maybe discuss that on Thursday in more detail.
Yeah, absolutely.
So-
And I'll see what the town of Wayland and some other towns have done on a policy perspective.
Good. Yeah.
Okay, so do we want to request that from the assessors then at this time? I mean, I think it makes sense to, as you said, at least put it on the table.
Absolutely.
I think you should write a letter asking them what the amount is of available cash, I guess, right?
I'm sorry, what?
Overlay surplus, yeah.
The-
it'll be held-
The board should write a letter.
It is a written request.
Yeah.
Okay.
You said it's held in a separate revolving account, though, Paul.
It's held in a separate fund called overlay surplus, and it can be appropriated for any lawful purpose. However, at the end of the fiscal year, what's left in that goes back to the general fund.
Oh, right.
Which would then become part of the calculation of free cash next year.
The DOR has a real quick explanation of it. If you wanted to Google it, it's probably about 5 sentences. It's a little
Real quick.
easier to understand than
The MGL.
Yeah.
than the
I know.
MGL.
Yeah.
All right.
That isn't part of our 2.5.
No.
So do we want to ask now for that? or-
Yes,
Yeah.
because I think we
Yeah.
want
Right, I
to,
think if
have
we-
everything available to
November.
us on November 17th.
Yeah.
So that way, the boards can make the recommendations and the community can ultimately decide.
If we have a motion, we can.
Yeah, I don't think you'd want to be in a situation where you were at town meeting and then people were saying, well, why didn't we make everything available?
Okay. I will make a motion that the Board of Selectmen provide a written request to the assessors to provide certification of the excess amount of overlay.
It's called excess or surplus? Does it
Well, it's
matter?
overlay surplus, but it's,
Okay,
Seconded.
all right. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. We'll get that letter drafted and sent to them and see what we come back with. Thank you.
okay, the next item I have, again, occurred since our last meeting, is we did receive from Charter Environmental, which is the environmental firm for the Glenview landfill, we did receive their haul route assessment study for the landfill capping project. Obviously, it's available online. It's in the packets. The report goes on for 30-some-odd pages, and then there's reams of data, and we need not go into the reams of data or into the detail of the report. However, the report does have an executive summary and conclusion to the community, and in essence, they basically, and I'll just read this one sentence, it's based upon network modeling and field observations, it was concluded that traffic generated by hauling activity related to the capping produces minimal impact on traffic in the area. Furthermore, the use of Drum Hill Road as a haul route does not create new or significantly add to current traffic delays and remains the better route to use, because they did explore different routes up in Drum Hill. With that in mind, when I received this report, I did speak to Charter Environmental and said, well, thank you for the report, but if you recall, when you had your session in the spring, early summer, you indicated that you would have another public meeting in the fall once the data was available, and so they did recall that. I was notified that the earliest date that they could produce this public hearing, and they wish to do it in the same venue, which is the Adams Library Community Room, and that would be Tuesday, November 25th at 7 p.m. And so they will be.
Is that the Tuesday before Thanksgiving?
It is the Tuesday before Thanksgiving. It was the earliest night that they could pull everything together. It also, I think, was the earliest night that the Adams Library Community Room was available. We could have offered them different venues, but that was the soonest they could do it. I don't.
Well, the
I don't-
earliest may not be the best.
Well, but again, it would give us a whole nother month beyond where we are now. So I don't know, and that would also give people another month to review this report, so I mean, if you want them to push it out into December, I'm sure I could ask that, but I don't know.
Well, I mean, if
What's
it's
to be
just
gained?
one
Not
more
Wed-
week.
It's not Wednesday. If it were Wednesday, I think I would object, but
A
Tuesday.
lot of people that are traveling, though, wouldn't be waiting till Wednesday to travel, Pat. I mean, if people had one, I'm not saying.
I mean, do we want to ask them to put it off for a week? I mean, I'm okay with that. I'm okay with it either
If we're
time.
gonna wait that long, we may as well wait.
Do you want me to ask them to
One
do
more
it
week.
in,
In December?
ask them to do it in December? I can ask them to do it in December, okay.
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 And now, do we know if the neighbors have, they had asked to be put on the email for this, and I don't know if they've gotten it or not. I didn't look at the email distribution, but this is also available on our website, or at least a link to it.
And they keep asserting that they have this public site that all these documents are being placed upon that people can access. So that's where we are with that.
Okay.
The next item I have has to.
So we're not gonna, should we discuss it at all, or?
Well, do you have any comments that you wanted to make on it?
I have a very hard time believing that a big giant truck coming every 10 minutes, 9 hours a day, coming off of Drum Hill Road, and then trucks exiting as well, will not have any impact on our traffic. I mean, this report is a joke. I mean, a 5-year-old could look at this and you tell them, listen, Timmy, a big truck is going to come down this road every 10 minutes. You think it's going to make the cars go slower? And he's going to say yes. So I think this is ridiculous. I was actually hoping he'd be here tonight, but I'll just wait and attend the, I know it's not his report, but, again, I just think it's ridiculous. I think it's just common sense that our traffic's going to be impacted. And,
Are they using that many trucks now? I thought they had cut down the number of trucks. I was against it in the beginning myself, but, I mean. I thought they
There's
cut
not
down.
much traffic out there right now. I don't know if they're waiting, because we still haven't heard back from the DEP on all the questions we had. So I got a feeling it's just a little slow, and it hasn't even really ramped up to what it should be.
I don't know if there's, Paul, if you have more experience with traffic surveys, I think the word significant is a little subjective, and that might be where this sort of comes into play. I almost wonder what, from a traffic study perspective, would be considered significant. I mean, I don't
Well, it's not
have that answer.
percentages,
Because, yeah, I mean, is like a 5% increase significant? Is it 1%? And like, what is this as a percent? I wonder how they break
20,000
that.
daily trips along the roadway.
Right.
So that's why I think they're using the word insignificant.
Oh, yeah,
And,
no,
and they also pointed out in the study that the times of the truck routes were not the peak traffic times.
Mhm.
That, the peak traffic times were after 5 PM, they're done by 5. Just explaining the analysis in the study. I mean, I don't know if the board, as Bob knows, having been a veteran planning board member, we could always have a
Talk
peer
about
review
law.
of the traffic study if we want to engage that type of effort and expense. I don't know what you want to do. I can tell you in our office, we've not received any calls or complaints either from residents in the last several weeks or from the police department in terms of there being issues with the traffic thus far. But
That's a big point. Plus the guy's a professional. He was there that night, the first night, right? The traffic engineer.
yeah.
Yeah.
I'm around in the daytime once in a while. I surprisingly haven't been stopped or bothered by any of the traffic, to be truthful with you. And I was opposed to them in the very beginning. I really was. So.
Mhm.
Good.
That's why I didn't think they really would use it as many trucks as they had been.
Yeah, so we'll see how it goes over the next month or so, and
Okay.
go to that meeting and see if we need to take further action. Thanks, Paul.
Okay, the next item I have pertains to a proposal from Eastern Bank to demolish a drive-through structure at 17 North Road. That's obviously the corner at North Road and Fletcher Street. And why I bring this to the board is obviously this pertains to the preservation restriction that the town holds at that location. I've shared with the board and in the packets with the application from Eastern Bank to the Historic District Commission, and obviously in today, the email that we received from council on this matter. But in essence, they're seeking to take down the silo drive-throughs and clear that area up because they just don't deem it to be effective for their operations because it requires them to physically place a person outside of the bank. And I think, quite frankly, the transaction activity with the drive-throughs is just down considerably, and so they're sort of reverting back to one at the building. Those structures were built back in 1980, and their plan is to basically, remove the silos, clean up the site, address the 6 displaced parking spaces, and then they talk about a future plans for the area would be to construct a gazebo at the enjoyment of both the employees of the bank and to the general public. The opinion from council is that they do need to file the requirements under the preservation restriction, which basically is notice to the planning board and to the Historic District Commission. And then in order to undertake this work, as it's an alteration of the premises, they would have to obtain a permit from the Historic District Commission. Where the Board of Selectmen falls into, as we know from a rather
Just
famous
continue
history,
your
is
stance.
that the board has the ability, the authority to enforce the provisions of the preservation restriction. So basically, they don't come to you for approval of this project. However, if the board were to deem that the preservation restriction were being violated, then the board has the authority to act in that instance. So that's where we're at with this application. So in summary, and again, the opinion that came in today is the drive-through is subject to the preservation restriction. The granting of that application to tear it down would not violate the restriction, and that any gazebo, though, that in the future would need to resemble a barn-like structure. So that's where we're at with this. And again, thought it was in the town's best interest that we make the community aware, because I don't think this has sort of caught any attention in terms of either the print media or social media or otherwise.
Okay, so since we did just receive that letter from council today, do we know if the proposed gazebo, if they have a rendering for that? I mean,
I've not seen one. I think
Okay.
I think it was thrown out by the applicant in terms of what could they do with that site.
Okay.
So they're not saying where?
No,
or-
no.
or what it's going to look like? Okay. So we don't need to take any
If,
action
again,
for
if
the
they wish to do
demolition.
that, they'd have to come in and pull a building permit. They'd have to do the
Right.
same process again.
Okay.
If they wish to build a gazebo there, they'd have to file with the Historic District Commission, notify the planning board. They'd have to pull a permit after a decision of the Historic District Commission. And then again, if the board felt that the structure violated the preservation restriction, then this board could act.
Okay. Yeah, I guess my feeling on that is if and when they do come forward with a proposal for building something there, we should put it on our agenda just to make it be clean so that we don't have issues like we've had before. And, but we need to know what it's going to look like, where it's going to be, and all that other information too, so.
And should the Historical Commission,
Historic District Commission.
Historic District, should they approve anything without seeing plans?
Well, they have plans for the demolition. They don't have any
Yeah.
plans for a gazebo. And again, I don't think there's an application for a gazebo
Yeah.
at this time.
The demolition is not an infringement on any.
But it does have to be, it's an alteration of the structure, so it does
But I
have to
mean,
be
it's
acted upon.
reducing the square footage
Mhm.
percentage-wise, as opposed to if it was increasing it, then we'd have to
Right.
look at it,
Right.
closely.
Now, P5, there's a picture of P5, it says approach to drive-through. And I thought it was gonna be a walk-up window, but I think it's gonna be a drive-through. The picture of P5.
Aren't they gonna just make it an ATM?
Well, that's what I'm wondering, is it,
Well, that's what they have now.
or are they gonna have like one driver where someone in the main bank will service them?
Right, that's the point. The person the drive-through would be in the bank.
Yeah, would be in the
Right,
bank. So
right.
they're gonna have to plan, the flow and stuff
Mhm.
that goes in
And
there.
then, and again, that's why they have to file with the planning board.
Right.
Submit those plans to the Historic District Commission.
Okay, any other questions on this? Okay,
Guess we'll wait and see what they come back with.
yep. Good.
The next item I have, again, informational purposes, has to do with road salt price increase. We've, since the time of our last meeting, we have received the information from the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. We purchase our salt through the state bid list. Just to give you the specifics of Chelmsford, last year for road salt, we were paying $50.88 a ton. This year's price is $63.65 a ton, which is a $12.77 increase per ton, or 25% increase. Basically, we have a $484,000 budget allocation within our snow and ice line for road salt. Obviously, we're going to monitor this and hope for warm weather this winter. I think if anyone's interested in this, all you've got to do is just Google road salt price increase, and you'll see stories across the country that, this was a result of last winter's severe icing situation. For some reason, for some reason, apparently from April to October wasn't enough time for them to, reset the market. But basically, we're seeing these type of price increase going from Vermont to Chicago to across the country, and in some cases, the amounts are even greater than what we've described. But I just wanted to let the board be aware of it, that, and again, I know this has been reported in, national news and so forth. Just
What's
to
the
let
high
people know.
price again, Paul?
Right now, it's $63.65 per ton for this season.
Okay.
How many ton did we use last year, Paul? I don't know offhand. Yeah, right. A lot. The next item I want to bring to board, and again, informational purposes, since our last meeting, we have received 3 separate Maya Loss Control and Risk Management Grant Awards. The largest being, Maya is going to grant the town $10,000 to do GIS mapping of our sewer data information. There's also a roof inspection program for $37.80 that we're taking advantage of, and then there's a $1,169 park sign grant that we're a recipient of. And again, I know Gary's still here. I just want to recognize his efforts and part of the overall efforts of the town in terms of loss control activities. The next item I have has to do with Harmony Park Playground. As the board knows, and we mentioned it earlier, we're still seeking a member for the Harmony Park Committee. However, since the time of our last meeting, that the existing committee members have met. They've been out to the site with Nick Perley, who's our certified playground inspector. It was deemed that in the interest of public safety and playground safety, that the current structure be removed from the site. That will happen probably within the next week or so. And then the goal of the committee is to have a new playground area constructed within a year from now. So
What's the structure that's being removed?
It's sort of a dated wooden structure, going back to the old East School up in East Chelmsford.
Oh.
And it's lived its useful life.
It's
And now it's the case where
It's
it'll be
equipment for-
replaced. Exactly,
yeah, okay.
for kids, and it'll be a different type, but obviously kid activity.
No,
reported
they're
there.
doing some fundraising for that.
Yes,
for that.
they're going to undertake those activities. And then the last one I have, and this goes back from a couple meetings, this has to do with the installation of a crosswalk across Littleton Road at Oak Street, where Aggregate and the gas station and soon the new housing will be there. We did receive a response from Mass DOT. They have basically even given us detailed drawings for the crosswalks and access ramps. What they haven't given us is a definitive date in terms of when this would be constructed. They're saying that the date of construction for the access ramps and crosswalks is dependent upon the existing list of prioritized locations that have already been scheduled through their ongoing ADA retrofit contract. So the bottom line is they'll get to it, they just can't tell you when they're going to get to it. So I just wanted to let the board know, that there was some follow-up back from Mass DOT on that issue. And that's my report for this evening.
Okay, thank you. Okay, next on the agenda is our special town meeting warrant. Paul, if you want to go over the articles that'll be on that
Sure.
warrant.
Yeah, we've got 4 articles for the November 17th special town meeting. The first, and was obviously the driver in calling the meeting, is to pay unpaid bills from previous fiscal years. And I would remind the board, not that you need reminding, but more information for the community. A week from tonight, we're scheduled to have a tri-board meeting with the Finance Committee and School Committee, and we anticipate by that evening, if not hopefully by the end of this week, we will have the number that the special auditor, as well as the interim consultant for the school committee, will have a number for us that they believe the town meeting will be asked to bring forth in terms of unpaid bills in this article, as well as the adjustment to the budget, which is the Article 4 of the fall annual town meeting, which will come up as well. So that's the first article. The second article is the article submitted by the Board of Selectmen, and that is to seek authorization and appropriation to purchase the property located at 101 Mill Road, which, as people drive by or are familiar with the site, is next to the Murphy soccer fields and the mill stream, or the old mill stream, or the old mill. It's the Merrimack Educational Collaborative former administrative headquarters or office space. It's a 1.77 acre parcel, and it has a structure on the parcel as well, and there's actually a second structure, which is a little outshed on the property. Gary Persichetti, our facilities director, and I, we went in and we were inside the building today to look at the structure, as well as see there is some furniture in there that the MEC is willing to provide to the community as well. The proposal obviously is to come to town meeting, ask for an appropriation to acquire this property. It needs to be a 2/3 vote because it is a land acquisition. And so that will be the second article on the warrant for the town meeting. We have agreed to a acquisition price with the Board of Trustees of the Merrimack Educational Collaborative. I might as well disclose it now, since it's going to.
I think so. I don't
It's
see
going
any
to come
reason
up,
why not.
as part of the planning. The agreed upon acquisition price is $490,000. So that will be the second item for the property. The property has been on the market for $539,000. They've agreed to the price, and obviously, it would be awaiting the action at the November 17th town meeting. The third article, again, going back to the presentations of this evening, that would be to transfer funds from the Sewer Enterprise Fund free cash for the reconstruction of the Mill Road Sewer Pump Station. And as we heard earlier this evening, that would be from the Sewer Enterprise Fund free cash in the amount of $350,000 for that funding source. And I want to remind people that's not the same fund as the Sewer Construction Stabilization Fund, which pays off the debt service for the sewer project. This is the free cash, or the fund balance from the operation of the annual enterprise fund that funds the sewer department operations. So that's what's going on in that article. And then the last article speaks to the Katrina Road project that Evan presented earlier this evening. Again, there's no appropriation in this case. What we're seeking to do is to set ourselves up in order to receive the $1.3 million grant from Mass Development. And what this would do, it would transfer the property from the tax title custodian, which is our finance director, treasurer collector John Souza, to the board in the event that a developer comes forward to either purchase the property or to lease it for solar purposes for a period not to exceed 20 years. So it's purchased it would be to convey for any lawful purpose, which is basically anything allowed under the zoning, and the lease would be for a term of 20 years only for a solar photovoltaic facility. I want to rest any fears that any lawful purpose would not include a 40B or affordable housing project. The Mass DEP has been very clear to us in our meetings. Because of the brownfield site, they would not approve any construction of residential dwellings at that location. So I just don't want there to be any concerns with that. So that would be the 4 articles of the special town meeting warrant. You'll note that the special town meeting would begin at 7:29, and it's deliberately done that way. That way the special town meeting would precede the adjourned session of the fall annual town meeting. So basically, in essence, we would go in, we would open up the warrant for the special town meeting, and then it's really going to be, the first issue is going to be, which is the elephant in the room, the driving issue is, what are the unpaid bills for the school department? And then I think there'll be information, and I sort of want to take a moment to explain. The meeting is on the 17th. As you've said, the tri-board meeting will be next Monday, the 3rd. The school committee is scheduled to meet on the 4th to discuss its request and recommendation. The finance committee will meet on the 6th, that Thursday. This board will be meeting the following Monday, the 10th. And then from there, the 11th is Veterans Day, and then 17th is the special town meeting. There will not be a town meeting information session with that type of schedule. However, working with Sheila Pichette, what will go out, and we are going to send a mailing to all of the town meeting representatives, and also we'll put it online certainly, which will provide information to the voters regarding the town meetings that are coming up. So, for example, what would be in there would be information pertaining to the funding shortfall. I think we also would put in there information pertaining to the funding sources that are available and so forth. So, in essence, it's going to be the FinCom report, but because of the extraordinary nature and the time frame, we're going to mail it that Wednesday, which would be the 13th, and the town reps should have it Thursday, if not by Friday, the latest, and then therefore they'll be able to have that information and be out in the community in advance of the Monday town meeting, because as we know, anybody can speak at the town meetings, but the reps are the ones who do the voting. So we're going to get this information out to the community by way of first-class mail and by the internet and so forth, and then, the reps will meet on the 17th, and if we don't finish on the 17th, then we'll come back on the 20th.
And you'll include in there something about these other 3 articles
Yes,
too?
yeah, and because basically it'll be like a FinCom report. I mean, in essence, they're the ones who are going to author the report, the finance committee, so that's how it will come in, yeah.
Okay.
We'll let them know that there's a 90% requirement on
Yep.
that.
Yep, at 9/10 vote, yep, that will be part of it as well.
So that Article 1,
Mhm.
the few words that are there will take care of the problem, right?
Well, that's basically, we're warning what a warrant does is it warns the community what's going to be considered, and what's being asked for is to appropriate funds to pay bills of previous fiscal years. It's deliberately left vague because, let's say a bill pops up that wasn't for 14, let's say it was a 13 bill or a 12 bill, or, I mean, just,
It would cover
so
it.
it's deliberately left, and town council has approved all this wording, or suppose a bill arose that gee, it turned out it wasn't the school departments, maybe it was the town administrator's office didn't pay something, so, but the bottom line is, we left it as vague as possible so that we could address any contingency.
Okay,
So we leave it as funds to pay bills of previous fiscal years. I don't know that we could
I'm
make it any
surprised you
broader.
didn't say invoices.
Well, the council used the word bills.
Hmm.
So. I don't know the difference between a bill and an invoice, but the bottom line is it's a financial obligation of the town.
So we don't need anything or any language for anything related to this fiscal year, you don't think?
No, but that's going to go into Article 4 of the annual
We
town
still
meeting.
have the other 5,
Which is
yeah.
the one to adjust the operating budget for the current fiscal year. So that will go into Article 4. What I think is there's going to obviously be an overview of what everything is, even though it's 2 separate articles that will be addressing, in this case, the school funding issue. I think you'll also, see, we're also, much like we did with this warrant, we're also looking at the town accounts to see if there are some items that we need to have adjusted in the operating budget for the current fiscal year as well. So we're looking at that, and therefore those may come forward for discussion as early as next Monday evening as well. And the board's aware of those. We had an adverse labor judgment against the fire department. We have one, it's working with Gary, we have a significant asbestos cost that arose in terms of doing some remediation work at one of the school buildings and so forth. So we'll be bringing those in as well. So again, that's what we'll be addressing the current year's budget.
Oh, yeah. Thank you.
Will there be presentations, like for Article 2? I think we had talked about
Yeah.
it briefly. So you're going to show the property. Is that
Yeah.
going to be, is there going to be any kind of picture or anything in the information that the Finance Committee sends out? Or are you just going to leave it to people to kind of Google Map 101 Mill Road?
I was out there today taking photos at the site. I don't know what really produces well in a black and white report.
Yep.
But clearly the PowerPoint at town meeting will have photos of the property.
Just so people fully
Yeah,
understand
we'll
what
see.
we're talking
Yeah,
about.
and you know, so I think that will be the case, and I don't know if any of the member of the board is going to present the article. I don't know how you want to handle that in terms of the presentation, if one of you wishes to present the article at town meeting.
Yeah, we can talk about that.
Okay, as we get closer to that.
Probably
Yeah.
you, Pat.
Any other
Chair.
questions on the special town meeting warrant?
Do we have to vote to post it?
Yes, we have to vote to post it, yes.
Make a motion to post the warrant for special town meeting of November 17th, 2014.
I'm going
Second
to
it?
give the time to
Oh.
7:29.
At 7:29 PM at the Senior Center, 75 Groton Road, North Chelmsford.
Okay,
Seconded.
okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thanks. Okay, and at our next meeting, we'll be doing recommendations for these and the 5 that we skipped from the other ones. Okay. Button House is next on the agenda.
Yeah, this again is a follow-up from the last meeting. Since the time of the last meeting, I became aware that the board received another proposal for the Dutton House that exceeded the $10,000 threshold. I notified that of town council. We're now back into a more formal structured RFP process. So town council and I developed this for your consideration this evening. If the board approves or otherwise edited the proposed invitation for bids for the property, we will do the formal advertisement. We'll put it online. We'll also send it to the 3 parties who've expressed interest. I actually received interest since our last meeting in Evan as well from another party, interest in the Dutton House. We'll send it to those 3 parties. And then the proposed date right now would be to accept sealed bids up until Wednesday, December 3rd at 11 a.m. And then obviously we'd bring it before you for a decision at a subsequent selectmen's meeting. The key thing, and we put it in bold letters, again, is that the successful bidder must submit with its bid a pro forma statement identifying all costs to be incurred in the relocation of the building, including permitting, relocation, police detail costs, insurance, and other necessary and related costs. And I think that came from Matt, because I think the concern was that we wanted to make sure that we didn't have a repeat of a case where perhaps the party wasn't aware of the full costs of doing this project. And then you then see on the subsequent page the evaluation criteria. So it's not solely bid on price, it's also, there are evaluation criteria regarding the where the house is relocated in terms of in or outside of the community. We left the charitable organization part there. We also have criteria regarding disruption to the abutters, the visibility of the house at a new location, the historic significance of the new location, and zoning relief. So that's what we have for your consideration this evening, and I think at this point we have time. If the award it takes place in December, again, the move isn't going to take place until the weather breaks in the spring. So we believe that would be sufficient time for an awarded bidder to pull the information and activities together so that it can be done certainly by the end of the fiscal year.
Okay, anybody have anything they'd like to add or edit in the RFP?
Well, I had actually asked Paul about having something in there about any tax liability, that the bidders be free of any liabilities to the town, but Paul assures me that that's covered by...
Right, because we have the bylaw for delinquent taxpayers, and therefore they couldn't pull the building or demolition permit if they were delinquent in taxes.
Okay.
So I think that's covered under our
Okay.
statute.
Good. Thank you.
Okay. And this will be posted, this will be advertised?
We're going to legally advertise it in the newspaper. It'll be posted, And then, like I said, we will mail it to the 3 parties that have expressed interest
Okay.
most recently. That's all I'm aware of, 3 parties that have expressed interest.
Okay. And we are asking for sealed bids.
Yes,
Okay.
sealed bids and, yeah.
Do you intend to have any, I know sometimes you have a pre-bid conference or whatever it's called.
I mean, a bidders meeting.
Yeah, whatever it's called.
I think if anybody's interested, they could contact, we'll let them in the building.
Okay.
I think that's the easiest thing to do,
Okay.
rather than, you know.
He's in conference?
Right, exactly. We'll provide access to the building of any interested party.
Okay.
That's the easiest thing to do, rather than people staring at each other and.
Right, well, it just seems like all of a sudden there's been a lot of interest in this
Right.
building, so. All right, anything else on the Dutton House? Okay, great.
Thank you.
All right, we have the minutes. Executive session on August 25th.
Is this to be
August
released? August 25th.
August 5th?
Says
Oh, did you
25th.
do agenda item 11, or?
Yeah.
Well, on the agenda,
Yeah, this is
11
all
is a
off.
minute.
it says a minutes.
Oh,
On the new agenda, it says minutes.
oh, okay, I'm sorry, okay.
So,
All right, I didn't catch that
we'll go there.
change. Okay.
There's been a little rearranging
Oh,
here, I
alright.
guess, so we'll do that next.
Actually, it says August 5th on here. It's actually August 25th.
Okay.
Are these to be released?
I think they can be, because remember at one of our previous meetings, we did, in public, signed that agreement with this party. We may have to revisit it at some point, but I think everything that's in here has already been made public, so.
Okay. Make a motion to approve the Board of Selectmen executive session minutes of August 25th, 2014, to be released.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, and then we have another one for September 8th. Again, I think it can be released. I don't know how others feel about that. You were not at that meeting.
You don't need to do it.
Yeah,
in
that's
open
fine.
session.
Okay, so, well, if you want to do the motion on that.
I make a motion that we accept the executive session minutes for September 8th, 2014, and they can be released.
Second?
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Abstain.
All right, and October 6th, executive session minutes.
Okay. Make a motion to approve the Board of Selectmen executive session minutes of October 6, 2014, to be released.
Seconded?
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, great. All right, and now we'll go to group homes. This is the second time recently that we've gotten emails about the concentration of group homes as it's described in the email. As has been mentioned, I mean, before, there's not a lot that we, as this board, have control over. Those generally are private sales, and I know that at least one of our state reps and our state senator are working to have meetings with the neighborhood to try to see what they can come up with to get their issues kind of in line, and then see where they go from there, if it's to talk to the people who manage those homes or where it goes from there. So I don't know what other comments we might have on those.
I've spoken to a couple of residents, and I think where they were looking for support from the board was just so that they could be heard by the legislators.
Right.
You know, they understand that we don't have control over this, and again, you know, in talking with them, the only concern that was communicated to me was the density, you know, that there were, you know, 5 or 6 in a very small area. And again, I reiterated to them and confirmed that, you know, we could be there to support them, to make sure that the reps hear their message, but we don't take a stance on an issue such as this.
Right, and has been brought up earlier this evening, if there are some of these issues which they consider, I don't know, a nuisance or excessive noise, they can call the police, or if there's, you know, behavior that they feel is inappropriate, or the police are there, and that's what they're there for.
On a case-by-case basis,
Right.
essentially.
Or to try to develop a, more communication and a relationship with the person who's in charge of that house. And
Right.
that's somebody that they can reach out to so that everyone's a, you know, a good citizen in the neighborhood and.
Yeah. and,
Right.
I know I've stated before, I have one right next door to me, and I don't have any problems with it. But one of the things you should do is go to the owner of the home, because they can, like in my case, another company owns it, and then it's rented out as, you know, to the state or whoever it is. And they've been very good about anything that, you know, I request. They were putting a fence up, and I requested a certain style fence, and they were very good. And while the residents in the one next door to me are older, they're all men, outside of when I had a burning permit once, they called the fire department, and the fire department came. But outside of that, I've worked very well with the owner of the home and the people that are running it. So I've had no problems. But again, density is not an issue to me because it's only one that's next door to me. So.
I mean, it's nice that they agree, that they go along with you and everything
Yeah,
like that.
yeah.
I don't know if we have any more right to go to them, though, than we would to have, go through your next door neighbor, you know, and ask him, you know, not to have a loud cookout or whatever, you know what I mean?
Right.
You know, and I understand, and I'm sure they understand too, so that's probably why they were working with you,
Yep.
you know what I mean? They don't want to be a nuisance, so to speak, but we don't want to make them feel like they're any different than anybody else.
Right. I understand where they're coming from, but it's not something that we can resolve. So. Communication's gonna be the big thing. That's
Right.
So, like, you do the same thing with your neighbor as you would, you know what I mean? Just like it regularly. We have the American Disabilities Act in there too, that could bring in civil rights violations, and I think, I'm not an attorney by any means, but presented by a few.
Never too late, George.
So depending on, you know, how those meetings go or when they go, I'll, you know, try to keep up with the legislators and the senator to, and report back here what is determined. And like you said, see if they have met and will meet with the owners too, because they're the ones that really will have the impact more than us, really. Okay, anything else on that issue? All right, we'll go to referrals. George, how about if we start with you?
No, I hope everybody has a nice Halloween, and Matt, I hope you and your nephew and niece, you know, bring in the most candy you can share with some of us. And,
I will,
you know,
I will.
If there's any left, you're probably getting 40% anyway, aren't you, from the kids?
I'll eat all the Reese's and the Twix. Everything else you can have.
But I would advise the people that the children will be out at that time, and that they should take extra precaution. It's because it's getting dark. This weekend, we turn the clocks back, right? So it's going to be darker. It's going to be pitch black, right? Both full 2 hours of the trick or treating. So so I would just ask the people to be extra careful and watch for the kids on the road. You have them carry flashlights too. I would, you know, if they can, ask the parents to.
And we hope it won't be snowing.
Be extra safe. Yeah.
Wouldn't want another postponement. of
No.
Halloween.
Okay, Janet, how about you?
We're going to be meeting on Thursday at 3 p.m. at Parker Middle School for the town digitization project. Pat, you're going to be there as well?
Yes.
Okay. We don't have to post that then, do we? Okay. And then I'd mentioned earlier, Matt and I will be meeting as the policy subcommittee Thursday at 4:30 at the Dunkin' Donuts on Drum Hill. And this one's going to be a little long, but I think it's worthy of the time. Yesterday I attended the Girl Scouts here in Chelmsford had a recognition ceremony and it was a wonderful event, and there were 26 Girl Scouts that were awarded bronze awards, silver award, gold award, and one young lady was graduating from the Girl Scouts. And I was there to present on behalf of the Board of Selectmen and the town certificates to each of the girls, and it was definitely very much appreciated. So I'd like to just take a minute and read through their names pretty quickly. So the Girl Scouts who received bronze awards: Julianne Clark, Caitlin Fox, Emma Hebert, Jillian Jones, Olivia Kearney, Kate Kruger, Caitlin Paul, Alyssa Poisson, Jenna Ward, and Morgan Wright. Amelia Anderson, Kelsey Landers, Jillian McLean, Lindsay Snyder, Gabby Stafford, Amelia Audette, and Shannon Kempner. For the Silver Award, Patricia Adesanya, Isabel Clark, Shalini Gupta, Emily Lyons, Rachel McGinn, Megan Spence, and Jessica Wagner. And for the Gold Award, Samantha Lee, and the graduating Girl Scout is Marion Murphy. Again, congratulations. It was a wonderful ceremony, and the Girl Scout leaders and ceremony coordinators were Sandra Stearns, Tina Kempner, and Celine Grippen. And that's all.
Good. Thanks for doing that. Well, what have you got?
Nothing this week.
Okay. Matt,
Right.
how about you?
Well, first, I know George has a birthday coming up, so I want to wish him happy birthday. Not sure how old, but it's not polite to ask. So.
77.
Oh, no, it can't be. I'm only 26. You're at least, only 10 years older than me. Sure.
That's
So.
true.
Happy birthday, George.
Thank you.
Happy Halloween to everyone in the community. I hope everyone stays safe on Friday. And I will be, I found a new location for my office hours that I'm going to try out up at Panera in Drum Hill on Thursdays from 5 to 6. So,
Not this Thursday.
not this Thursday. Well, yeah, I mean, I'm hoping to, we can do a half an hour and then,
She said it's going to be a long one.
do you think it's going to be too long?
Well, you
Well,
can
I
work,
wanna-
you
wanna
can
plan
work
on
that
it.
out
Well,
on
if you'll agree with
Thursday.
me, we can go like that.
There you go.
Well, if you'll compromise with me, well, I don't know.
Well, you already committed to the 25, so I'm feeling pretty good.
At 4:30. We'll go with the half an hour. I may be 10 to 15 minutes late this Thursday, so maybe hold off until about 5:15. But my plan moving forward will be 5 to 6 on Thursdays, because that's the time that seemed to work pretty well for people after work and for myself after work.
And
So
it's a great location.
yeah, I think so. Pretty centrally located. So
It's getting cold, so you sit by the fireplace with them,
there
right?
we go. Those fireplace seats are pretty highly coveted, though. So
Yeah, you gonna have marshmallows too?
maybe I'll bring some if you'll come visit me.
Okay,
All right, very good. That's all tonight.
okay. Okay, a couple of things that have already been touched upon somewhat this evening. Last Wednesday, we went, Paul and I were at the Richard P. O'Neill Veterans Housing on Manahan Street. Great facility. It will house 8 veterans who, at least a couple of whom otherwise would be homeless, so it's really a good location. We're so happy to have them come into town, and there was a lot of fundraising done there, including somebody out in the audience here who contributed funds for some of the amenities for the folks who'll be living there. So it's a great place, and it's really good that we have that in town. A couple voting things. Don't forget to vote for the One Book. I cast my ballot today. You can do it absentee. You can do it online. You can do
Absentee.
it any way you want. You have until next Tuesday, November 4th, to vote for the One Book that we'll all be reading next year. So don't forget to do that. And
Do that at the library, is that the?
you can do it at the library, you can do it on the library website. Yep.
Library website.
Yep. And also don't forget to vote in the general election next Tuesday, November 4th. Hoping to have a good turnout, and we haven't seen as many signs around town as we usually do. So I hope people don't forget about voting.
Yeah, it's true.
And just another reminder, too, about our tri-board meeting next Monday at the school administration building. Our next regular meeting here will be a week after that on November 10th.
Is that 7 o'clock next week?
7 o'clock, yes. Seeing that the press has left, it looks like we don't have any press questions this evening, so I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn?
Seconded?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.